from the Bay Area's news station. This is KRON 4 News Weekend.
And I'm Jan Wahl. She worked with everyone from Marilyn Monroe to just some of the biggest in the business, a great character actress. And her son is here with his one-man show about her life. We're talking Eileen Heckert. Now, Eileen worked with everyone from Marilyn Monroe and Bus Stop to Murphy Brown, Mary Tyler Moore, lots of television and lots of movies, too. Hello. She knew everyone from Dietrich to Merman. Her son, Luke Yankee, was there for much of it. It's part of his tribute show to his mom, Diva Dish. Welcome, Luke Yankee.
Thank you very much.
I love the name Diva Dish. What did she think of working with Marilyn?
She loved Marilyn. She had two sets of stories she would tell about Marilyn, and the second one she could never tell without bursting into tears for most of her life, about this woman who was so desperate to be loved, desperate to have a child, and I share a lot of those wonderful stories in my show.
She really knew them all.
She did, and this was, she was doing a film called Hot Spell with Shirley Booth, directed by Mervyn LeRoy, and Clark Gable was a great friend of Mervyn LeRoy, and so he was just hanging out on the set in between takes, and she just sat there drooling the entire time.
Okay, and then also there's a very interesting film most people don't know about with Sophia Loren as a blonde.
Yes. It's a film called Heller in Pink Tights by George Cukor, and that's Margaret O'Brien as a young woman. And Sophia and Margaret got very chummy during that. And what a lot of people don't know is that Sophia's almond-shaped eyes were enhanced, and she had these tapes that she would use and would pull on the sides of her eyes just a little bit with these tapes to enhance the almond-shaped eyes. And she and Margaret O'Brien were exchanging beauty tips one day, and George Cukor was ranting and raving the next morning, saying, "We have to reshoot the whole morning because Margaret O'Brien looks Chinese." And sure enough, Margaret O'Brien had pulled the tapes too tight.
Oh, so she had tried the same thing.
She had tried the same thing.
And put makeup over
Exactly.
it?
For three-quarters of the movie, she looks like Margaret O'Brien, and for the last quarter, she looks like Madame Chiang Kai-shek.
And that brings to mind another actress who pulled her face back with pins, they say.
Marlene Dietrich.
Yes.
That's right. Surgical pins she had implanted into her scalp and then put them over her wig. It was very, very painful.
Whoa.
But the night after my mother won the Academy Award, she gets back to the hotel, and there's a huge stack of messages, and the one on the top simply says, "Call Marlena." So she dials this number in Paris, and she's thinking, won't it be exciting that my first phone call after winning the Oscar will be from Marlene Dietrich? And she says, "Hello, Marlena." And Marlena says, "Darling, your makeup looked terrible." She said, It was in the movie, too." And Marlene Dietrich starts berating her for her lack of style, for her lack of fashion, because in the parlance of Marlene Dietrich, she didn't understand how my mother could be talented and not be glamorous. And some of the great stories I tell in the show, they're not just, I use my mother's stories as a transition into some of my own as well. For instance, Ethel Merman teaching me how to make a martini in my parents' living room at age 12, a real Auntie Mame story in my life. Paul Newman giving me acting lessons in my parents' living room at age 14. Really just some incredibly wonderful experiences that I got as a result of being a showbiz kid.
Oh, wow. And your mom kept working. I mean, a lot of us...
That's right.
I just saw her on an episode of Sybil where she was Mary Ann's mother.
Exactly.
She was Lou Grant's girlfriend.
That's right. Mary Tyler Moore's Aunt Flo.
I mean, she did a lot of... In the First Wives Club, she was
Exactly.
Diane Keaton's mom.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yes.
she played a lot of those mothers there toward the end. Was she okay with that?
Yes, she was fine with that. And a funny story about Ed Asner. They had such respect for one another and were just so fond of one another. And when I actually directed Ed up at the Sacramento Theater Company in a production of Love Letters, and I went up to him, and he knew that I was the son of, and I said, "Ed, it is such a pleasure to meet you. I have the most wonderful picture of you French kissing my mother." Because sure enough, in one episode of the Mary Tyler Moore Show, he plants a big kiss on her. It's great.
Well, if you want to see part of a wonderful dame's life brought to her by a loving son and a whole kind of Hollywood brought alive, you have to see Luke's play, Diva Dish, honey. Fabulous. Thank you, Luke Yankee.
You.
I'm so glad you're keeping